I was 22 when I married him, still learning who I was, still believing that love was something you earned by giving more of yourself away. He stood at the altar confident and calm, promising protection, loyalty, and forever. I remember thinking how lucky I was, how safe I felt placing my life in his hands. I didn't know then that trust can feel exactly like safety until the moment it disappears. In the beginning, our marriage felt simple and warm. We didn't have much, but we had plans. Small apartments, shared meals, laughter at midnight. I supported him while he chased his career, telling myself that love meant patience. When he stayed late at work, I cooked alone. When he was stressed, I stayed quiet. I believed being a good wife meant making life easier for him, even when it made mine heavier. When I became pregnant, I was terrified and joyful all at once. He hugged me, smiled, said we were building a family. I believed him. I rearranged my entire world around that belief. My body changed, my priorities shifted, my sleep disappeared, but I told myself this was love in its truest form. Sacrifice. Commitment. Showing up even when it hurt. I put my dreams on pause without resentment. I turned down opportunities because his job needed stability. I managed our home, raised our son, handled the invisible labor no one applauds. I remembered birthdays, paid bills, soothed fevers, and kept everything running while he focused on becoming successful. Every achievement of his felt like a shared victory. I was proud of him in a way that never demanded anything back. But slowly, something changed. He stopped looking at me the way he used to. Conversations became short. His phone was always face down. When I asked questions, he said I was overthinking. When I felt lonely, he said I was being emotional. I learned to doubt my instincts, to silence my own discomfort, because I believed marriage meant endurance. I told myself all couples go through phases. That love matures into routine. That passion fades and responsibility replaces it. I believed those lies because they were easier than accepting the truth I wasn't ready to face. I trusted him completely. I trusted the man who shared my bed, my child, my life. I trusted that loyalty was mutual. I trusted that the foundation I was breaking my back to hold up would never be used against me. Looking back now, I see the signs I ignored. The way I disappeared while he expanded. The way my voice grew softer as his grew firmer. But at the time, I thought this was marriage. I thought this was what commitment looked like. I didn't know that while I was building a home, he was quietly preparing to walk away from it. He didn't choose a dramatic moment. No shouting. No tears. Just a quiet evening after our son had fallen asleep, toys still scattered across the living room floor. I remember thinking he looked unusually calm, almost relieved. That should have scared me more than anger ever could. I want a divorce, he said. The words didn't register at first. They hovered in the air, heavy and unreal, like a language I didn't understand. I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because my mind refused to accept them. I waited for him to explain, to say this was stress, exhaustion, something we could fix. Instead, he leaned back and crossed his arms. I've thought about it for a long time. That's when I knew this wasn't a conversation. It was a decision already made without me. Then came the sentence that truly destroyed me. I want the house. The cars. Everything, he said flatly. I don't want to fight. I just want a clean break. He paused, then added, almost casually. You can keep the child. I'm not built for that responsibility. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might stop breathing. The child. Our son. Not a person to him, just an obligation he didn't want. I felt something shatter inside me, something deep and invisible. Not just my marriage, but my understanding of who I had built my life with. This man wasn't hurting. He wasn't conflicted. He was calculating. When I asked him if there was someone else, he didn't deny it. He sighed, like I was inconveniencing him with my pain. She understands me, he said. We grew apart. You changed. changed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every night I stayed awake with a sick baby while he slept. Every dream I delayed. Every part of myself I quietly erased so he could grow. But my voice wouldn't come. I just sat there, numb, realizing that the love I thought we shared had never been equal. The next day, I met my lawyer. She read through the documents and looked at me with disbelief. "He's trying to take everything," she said carefully. "This isn't fair. You're entitled to half. We can fight this." Fight. The word sounded exhausting. I was already so tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Tired of begging to be seen. Tired of defending my worth to someone who had already decided I had none. I thought about our son. About the kind of war a courtroom would become. About how he would watch his parents tear each other apart. And I realized something terrifying and clear. He didn't expect resistance. He expected me to break. That night, alone in the bedroom that no longer felt like mine, I cried silently so my son wouldn't hear. I mourned the life I believed in, the man I trusted, and the future I thought was secure. By morning, the tears were gone. Something else had taken their place. A quiet, burning resolve. If he thought this was the end of me, he had no idea what I was capable of becoming. When I told my lawyer I would give him everything, the room went silent. She stared at me like I had just confessed to a crime against myself. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "You're entitled to much more than this." I nodded. Everyone else reacted louder. My parents begged me to reconsider. Friends pulled me aside, whispering that heartbreak was making me reckless. They said I was letting him win, that I was throwing my life away. I let them believe that. I let them see a woman who was too tired to fight, too emotional to think clearly. What they didn't understand was that silence was the first time I could finally hear the truth. While my husband strutted through life, already spending money he hadn't officially won, I slowed down. I stopped arguing. I stopped explaining myself. I listened. I watched. I read every document he slid across the table with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I learned more about his finances in those quiet weeks than I had in our entire marriage. I discovered the business loans tied to our home. The guarantees signed in haste, assuming success would last forever. The cars leased under the company's name, not personal assets at all. I saw how fragile his empire really was, how it stood on borrowed money and blind confidence. And then there was the woman. I never confronted her. I didn't need to. Her presence revealed itself in receipts, late-night messages, and expenses that no longer tried to hide. He wasn't just in love, he was reckless. He believed the future belonged to him, and he believed I was too broken to notice. Meanwhile, I focused on the one thing that truly mattered. My son. I documented everything. Doctor visits I attended alone. School meetings he skipped. Nights when he didn't come home. I wasn't trying to punish him, I was protecting my child. Slowly, carefully, I built a case not fueled by anger, but by facts. At night, after my son fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by paperwork. I didn't feel powerful. I felt terrified. But fear didn't stop me anymore, it sharpened me. I realized that strength doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like restraint. My husband mistook my calm for defeat. He smiled more. He became generous with promises he didn't intend to keep. He told people I was being reasonable, that I understood he deserved more. He never once asked why I wasn't fighting. That was his mistake. Because silence isn't emptiness. Silence is strategy. By the time the final hearing approached, I had already let go of the need to be seen as the victim. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted freedom. I wanted my son to grow up watching his mother choose dignity over destruction. I wasn't giving up. I was stepping back, far enough to let the truth step forward on its own. And when the time came, I would let him take everything he thought he wanted. Because some victories are only visible once the noise fades. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cold air. I sat perfectly still, hands folded in my lap, listening to my name echo through a space where emotions were reduced to signatures and stamps. This was supposed to be the moment I broke. Everyone expected tears. Everyone expected regret. I felt neither. My husband sat across from me, relaxed, confident, already dressed like a man stepping into a better life. He didn't look at me once. He didn't have to. In his mind, I was already erased. When the judge asked if I understood the agreement, I answered clearly. Yes, Your Honor. My lawyer squeezed my arm gently, one last silent plea to reconsider. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. This was exactly where I needed to be. I signed everything. The house. The cars. The accounts. My husband finally looked at me then, and smiled. Not a grateful smile. A victorious one. The kind that assumes the story is over. But stories don't end when one person decides they do. As the clerk processed the paperwork, his lawyer flipped through the final pages again. Slowly. Too slowly. His confident expression tightened. His fingers paused. Your Honor, the lawyer said, clearing his throat, there appears to be an issue regarding the transfer of liabilities. The word hung in the air. Liabilities. My husband frowned. What does that mean? It meant the house came with the debt he had used to grow his business. It meant the cars came with lease obligations tied to a company already bleeding cash. It meant the accounts were balanced on credit, not savings. It meant I had just handed him exactly what he had built, without the buffer I had quietly been. For the first time, he looked at me with confusion. Then fear. The judge explained calmly. The law was clear. Assets transferred included associated obligations. There was no deception. No trickery. Just contracts he had signed and forgotten. My husband's lawyer went pale. Mine exhaled slowly, finally understanding. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Weeks later, the phone calls started. Missed payments. Legal notices. His business partners backed out. The woman he left me for disappeared as soon as the reality set in. Love, it turns out, doesn't survive interest rates and overdue balances. He tried to call me. Once. Twice. Then more. I never answered. Because revenge didn't require confrontation. It required boundaries. I moved into a smaller place with my son. It wasn't grand, but it was peaceful. No raised voices. No walking on eggshells. Just laughter, safety, and sleep that came easily for the first time in years. I watched karma do its work quietly, efficiently, without my involvement. And in that silence, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. I didn't win by taking from him. I won by letting him carry the weight of his own choices. That was the sweetest revenge of all.